So let's talk about this. Finished up a workout, of course. It's where 90% of my videos come from. And today I'm talking about the 90%. So, have you ever sacrificed the 90% for the 10%? Maybe you're doing it right now. What am I talking about? So I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was beating myself up because last night I got home, was with my son at boxing, and I've got a cutoff time, like I'm not really supposed to be eating past 8 o'clock. Okay, and we got home like 9:30. I hadn't eaten in a few hours, at least like 2.5 hours, whatever. I was hungry, I was very hungry. And a little bit stressed, a little situation going on last night. And I reached for the cookie jar, the old evil cookie jar. Technically it was chocolate. And I was like, beat myself up. And I'm looking in the mirror today. Fucking love handles, man. Like, they're there. Trust me, they are. And I'm supposed to be cutting right now. And I'm beating myself up because of 10% of what I do. I'm looking at everything else I do, like 90% dialed in. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, mindset, dialed in. 10% just literally beat myself up. Where do you do this at in your life? Is in your business, you do like 90% great, but you spend 90% of your time beating yourself up over the 10%. I see this happen a lot in marriages, like where the spouse will be like, it will check 90 of the boxes out of 100. And there's 10, maybe there's 10 they need. It doesn't say that they couldn't check them, just currently they're not checking them. Whatever that may be, maybe in sex, emotional, spiritual, whatever. But they're like 90% good, maybe even great. Yet they will go cheat, have an affair, get a divorce, or just have a really bad marriage because they're sacrificing that 90% because they're focusing on the 10%. Okay. It's a very, very powerful lesson. Just hit me today. I was sitting there looking at the mirror, beating myself up. What the hell am I doing? Hitting the cookie jar or the chocolate jar late at night. And I stopped and I'm like, dude, bro, you're like 90%. Like, good. Now, let's talk about the 10%. It doesn't mean that we need to be okay with that, right? So part of this game of life is a game of expansion, okay? So what you do, I was talking to my son about this last night, like on the way home from boxing. This is a good another like sub message here is that we get done boxing. He boxed 6 sparring rounds last night. I record them, like I video him, and while I'm videoing him, I give him, like I'm talking into the phone. I'm like, this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And so each week he goes in with an intention of like, I'm going to focus on this. Okay, focus on this. So we get done. He's beating himself up a little bit, and he always does. He always does. He's like, man, I could have done better. I could have done better. I could have done better. Man, what do I need to work on? What do I need to work on? And so we're driving home, and we hadn't started watching the videos yet. And he's like, what do I need to work on? And I said, well, your combos were a little bit off tonight. He's like, I know they were off, and I'm okay with that because my focus was on my head work and my footwork. Like I wanted to be incredibly active with my footwork, incredibly active with my head work. And I'm like, 100% you were. Like 100%. I'm like, dude, like when you start watching the videos, I'm going to talk to you about how great your head work and your footwork was, especially your head work. He's like, that's what I was most focused on. I'm like, and it showed. So when I said about your combos, we were talking about his combos and his uppercuts. I said, now those are probably the 10% now, right? So before, I'm not saying he's completely fixed his head work and footwork forever. No, but he put a focus on the 10%. He knew that was the area that he needed attention on. So rather than criticize the 90% that he's doing good, he focused intentionally for 6 rounds on his head work and footwork. He fought 6 rounds. 2 of those rounds was against a pro. And 2 of those rounds, first 2 rounds were a guy who's an amateur. 4 months ago, they were neck and neck. Like they were very similarly matched, similarly talented boxers, size and all that kind of stuff. My son dominated him. Then my son fought the pro. I'm not gonna say dominated, but he overwhelmingly won those 2 rounds, and then he knocked the kid out in his 6th round. The last kid he fought, he dominated that. The kid wasn't very good though, but so my son's beating himself up, and I'm like, dude, you clearly won all 6 rounds. Clearly, you 2 of those rounds against a pro who was like giving you massive kudos after it came to me specifically and said that you knocked the wind out of him, and like he wasn't expecting what he got from you tonight. So my son's sitting there focusing on the 10% in a negative light versus first like assessing this is the gap in the gain conversation if you're familiar with that concept. Realizing the gain, now we focus on the gap, the 10% in a productive way. And the productive way that you focus on that 10% is you get proactive. You don't focus on beating yourself up with a bad habit. What you do is you replace it with a good habit. My son went intentional into the boxing ring to focus on like errors and deficiencies. I used to set an alarm on my phone, like, dude, after this alarm goes off at night, I'm not eating anymore. I probably need to reset that alarm, right? I don't need to beat myself up. I need to figure out how to download a new mindset, a new thought process, and implement a new pattern. Okay, this applies in all areas of life, spiritually, relationally, physically, and financially. All 4 core areas of your life. Don't sacrifice 90% for the 10%. Just focus on what you want to see. Improve in that 10% so that you can move over. And then guess what? For the 90%, guess what? You can find a new percent. You need to focus on the growth. That's the game of expansion. Don't beat yourself up. Don't burn something to the ground in your relationship, in your fitness, in your relationship with God because of this 10%. Just realize, like, hey, I need to focus on some areas. Focus on these areas and devote some time there. If you need help with this, this is one of the things I do specifically in business and real estate. I have some specific methodology that I use to train people. I've used it for many, many years. It helps create power and profits in your business. If you need some help with that, feel free to message me. I have a live, small training each and every week. It's limited to just a handful of people. And we go through some of these concepts that you can use immediately to plug into your life and in your business, start getting results. Fix that 10%, move it into the 90% column, and figure out what else you got to do to grow and expand. I'll take care of my friends.